Shooter, you keep the trail and camp down there." He pointed to where the trees came to the water. "Till I head them hawsses off. I may not get back right away." He galloped up the open hill and went into the pine, choosing a place above where the vagrants had disappeared. Balaam dismounted, and picking up his six-shooter, took the rope off Pedro's neck and drove him slowly down toward where the wood began. Its interior was already dim, and Balaam saw that here must be their stopping place tonight, since there was no telling how wide this pine strip might extend along the trail before they could come out of it and reach another suitable camping ground. Pedro had recovered his strength, and he now showed signs of restlessness. He shied where there was not even a stone in the trail, and finally turned sharply round. Balaam expected he was going to rush back on the way they had come, but the horse stood still, breathing excitedly. He was urged forward again, though he turned more than once. But when they were a few paces from the wood, and Balaam had got off preparatory to camping, the horse snorted and dashed into the water, and stood still there. The astonished Balaam followed to turn him, but Pedro seemed to lose control of himself, and plunged to the middle of the river, and was evidently intending to cross. Fearing that he would escape to the opposite meadow, and add to their difficulties, Balaam, with the idea of turning him round, drew his six-shooter and fired in front of the horse, divining, even as the flash cut the dusk, the secret of all this, the Indians, but too late. His bruised hand had stiffened, marring his aim, and he saw Pedro fall over in the water, then rise and struggle up the bank on the farther shore, where he now hurried also, to find that he had broken the pony's leg. He needed no interpreter for the voices of the seeming owls that had haunted the latter hour of their journey, and he knew that his beast's keener instinct had perceived the destruction that lurked in the interior of the wood. The history of the trapper whose horse had returned without him might have been, might still be, his own, and he thought of the rag that had fallen from the buzzard's talons when he had been disturbed at his meal in the marsh. Peaceable Indians were still in these mountains, and some few of them had for the past hour been skirting his journey unseen, and now waited for him in the wood which they expected him to enter. They had been too wary to use their rifles or show themselves, lest these travelers should be only part of a larger company following, who would hear the noise of a shot, and catch them in the act of murder. So, safe under the cover of the pines, they had planned to sling their silent noose, and drag the white man from his horse as he passed through the trees. Balaam looked over the river at the ominous wood. And then he looked at Pedro, the horse that he had first maimed and now ruined, to whom he probably owed his life. He was lying on the ground, quietly looking over the green meadow where the dusk was gathering. Perhaps he was not suffering from his wound yet, as he rested on the ground, and into his animal intelligence there probably came no knowledge of this final stroke of his fate. At any rate, no sound of pain came from Pedro, whose friendly and gentle face remained turned toward the meadow. Once more Balaam fired his pistol, and this time the aim was true, and the horse rolled over, with a ball through his brain. It was the best reward that remained for him. Then Balaam rejoined the old mare, and turned from the middle fork of Sunk Creek. He dashed across the wide field and went over a ridge, and found his way along in the night till he came to the old trail, the road which they would never have left but for him and his obstinacy. He unsaddled the weary mare by Sunk Creek, where the canyon begins, letting her drag a rope and find pasture and water, while he, lighting no fire to betray him, crouched close under a tree till the light came. He thought of the Virginian in the wood. What could either have done for the other had he stayed to look for him among the pines? If the cow puncher came back to the corner, he would follow Balaam's tracks or not. They would meet, at any rate, where the creeks joined. But they did not meet. And then to Balaam the prospect of going onward to the Sunk Creek ranch became more than he could bear. To come without the horses, to meet Judge Henry, to meet the guests of the judges, looking as he did now after his punishment by the Virginian, to give the news about the judge's favorite man. No, how could he tell such a story as this? Balaam went no farther than a certain cabin, where he slept and wrote a letter to the judge. This the owner of the cabin delivered. And so, having spread news which would at once cause a search for the Virginian, and having constructed such sentences to the judge as would most smoothly explain how, being overtaken by illness, he had not wished to be a burden at Sunk Creek, Balaam turned homeward by himself. By the time he was once more at Butte Creek, his general appearance was a thing less to be noticed. And there was Shorty, waiting. One way and another, the lost dog had been able to gather some ready money. He was cheerful because of this momentary purseful of prosperity. "And so I come back, you see," he said, "for I figured on getting Pedro back as soon as I could when I sold him to you." "You're behind the times, Shorty," said Balaam. Shorty looked blank. "You've sure not sold Pedro!" he exclaimed. "Them Indians," said Balaam, "got after me on the Bow Leg trail. Got after me and that Virginia man. But they didn't get me." Balaam wagged his bullet head to imply that this escape was due to his own superior intelligence. The Virginian had been stupid, and so the Indians had got him. "And they shot your horse," Balaam finished. "Stop and get some dinner with the boys." Having eaten, Shorty rode away in mournful spirits, for he had made so sure of once more riding and talking with Pedro, his friend whom he had taught to shake hands. End of chapter 26.